Hello, everyone. Let me be the first to say that this semester has flown by so quickly, but I'm also very glad that it did. I hope that everyone was able to finish strong, and with that being said, I will jump into this discussion about shaping the future of student affairs. The prompt asks us to discuss two trends or issues related to the future of student affairs that is covered in Chapter 17 of the text. Before I begin, I would just like to note that this chapter was much more condensed and straight to the point, so it made this information easier to dissect. Zane, 2016, hit the nail on the head when stating how student affairs preparation programs must explore ways to develop practitioner capacities to constantly adapt to a changing environment, to be culturally adept around issues of diversity, and to be engaged in a relentless commitment to professional development and reinvention. The effective student affairs educators of the future will be part entrepreneur, part educator, part counselor, part financial analyst, part anthropologist, and part humanitarian, page 567. If you're wondering what that even means, this quote basically explains what student affairs is, why we do what we do, and what we should be aiming to do in the future, along with the titles and duties that may fall upon us when we least expect it. With that in mind, the first trend that I would like to touch on is the question of how will we facilitate the transition from knowledge centers to indispensable problem solving communities. Zane, 2016, explains how universities of the past used to have a reputation of being entities where information and knowledge are sold as products that is passed down from generation to generation. Now, institutions of today are having to reinvent the reputation that society has of them to become places where information is dissected, integrated, and applied to the needs and demands of society. Scholars will need to utilize both qualitative and quantitative data methods to understand trends and issues in higher education. Zane 2016 will argue that this is the only way to solve critical problems and create new knowledge. To break it down even further, Zane 2016 explained how being proactive towards the facilitation of change is better than waiting around for a reason to incite action. From a higher education perspective, being proactive towards change has a higher chance of breaking down those barriers and obstacles to admissions and enrollment. Increasing access to higher education may be the only way to ensure not only the legacy of institutions, but the diversity found within them as well. We don't have we won't have the opportunity to engage in exchange of knowledge and ideas without those key components, involving an open mindset towards change and diversity. Shifting to the second trend, the question presented was what tools inspire and facilitate educational innovations? With this trend, Zane 2016 explains the importance of having a strategic plan for student affairs initiatives. Although it is not enough to just have a plan, we need to have the proper tools in place to carry out the ideas presented in the strategic plan. However, Zane 2016 noted how attaining access to tools and advancements in higher education is not always a simple process. For one, ideas are often pitched through various organizational structures before being met with the challenge of benchmarking. In other words, these ideas are taken through a court of sorts and being interrogated for its effectiveness and usefulness for an institution. One main question is always asked is if other institutions aren't doing this, why should we? I will argue that this is a very frustrating mindset for administrators to have because it makes it harder to achieve the other trend that I mentioned. Benchmarking can be a pro and a con because on one side, it helps to ensure that some ideas do not take away from the reputation of an institution in the short and long term. It is understandable that administrators wouldn't want to make hasty decisions on certain initiatives, especially when they have partnerships and agreements between other institutions. However, on the opposite end, it doesn't allow space and opportunity for creative thinking and innovation. If institutions aren't open to ideas that cultivate change, what can we do? I like the solution that Zane 2016 suggested, and that is to try Stephen Sample's framework of free thinking and take ourselves out of the mindset of social constructs and the way that things traditionally are. Instead of giving reasons why an idea wouldn't work, we should try to give reasons why it could work and develop strategies to set a plan in motion. Regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, these trends can be affected in a variety of ways because although the use in technology and digital resources increased, the ability to effectively communicate and interact in person was affected due to having to keep a distance and engage with others remotely. It is interesting to see how institutions are working to get back on track with the way that learning and instruction has evolved. Moving on to the second question in the prompt, we are asked to compare the Taub and McEwen article to our journey with student affairs. The results were interesting, and one of the findings aligned with why I chose to pursue the field of student affairs. For me, it was an influence. Before I graduated college, I knew that I needed a job, but student affairs was the last thing on my mind. After graduation, I was offered a part time job in the Office of Recruitment and Admissions, and that position was recommended to me by a former boss. In recruitment and admissions, in comparison to some of my peers, I had to grow and have a love for it enough to want to learn more about it. In this current climate of higher education, I had to add, if I had to add anything as a study to this finding, it would be the need for mental health stability and diversity, equity and inclusion in student affairs. These two components are crucial to the acclimation and success of students. It also aligns with attraction because finding a successful balance of those entities can be personally fulfilling to individuals within the profession. Other than that, I believe that these findings will ultimately stand the test of time, as future scholars will be able to align themselves with at least one of the reasons for beginning their career in student affairs. Thank you for watching.